Scott.
Oh,
There he is. Look
there
at
we
that. Through the magic of live stream in his own studio. Beautiful studio, too. I love the coloring back there. It's awesome. Sweet.
Yeah. Thanks, Jim. We've got this retro vibe that we've gone through. It's on the website. It's in the software. It's in our studio. And I get lots of good feedback about it. It's, this is a side thing, but it totally relates to Bitcoin. There's an idea that life was simpler, and I think you would completely agree with this, that life was simpler when money worked better. And it's like people had more time to do the things that they want to do with their lives, pursue their interests. They didn't need to be a hedge fund manager or a hotelier on the side just to plan for the future. And that was like the time that were like, the 70s and 80s. That was,
I was going to say the best decades ever, the 70s and 80s. And that's the decades I grew up in. And it was, at the time, we didn't appreciate it as much as most people appreciate it now. But it was a simpler time, 100%.
Yeah, so that's the feeling that we want people to have when they, like we could have gone with some forward-thinking, futuristic look. Bitcoin is this thing that's way out in the world of tomorrow, but like really it's about reclaiming what we've lost and having like access to simple financial tools that actually do what they're supposed to. Yeah,
it's we're going to start off with this clip here because there's like a lot of people say, well, why Bitcoin, why, or whatever. And this piece here on CNBC today, and this is an interview with Donald Trump Jr., explaining why they got into crypto. And they didn't get into crypto because they thought it was cool. They actually had no other choice. Let's listen to Donnie talk here.
Where there was I could call any single banker in New York City. They'd pick up the phone. I'd be able to get a loan for whatever real estate project I was doing across the street. Then we got into politics, and all of a sudden, they wouldn't take your call. Right. You couldn't get financing. We were debanked. And what I realized, and my brother realized, because we were the recipients of every subpoena imaginable, was that, you know what, we were actually just the top of this sort of pyramid scheme that we didn't realize we were a part of, that the financial system was totally undemocratized. Because we had a certain balance sheet and whatever, we could kind of do whatever we wanted. The regular guy was messed up. Now we were all of a sudden in the shoes of the regular guy that wouldn't be able to take advantage of the markets. And we said, what's the solution for that? The answer is crypto. These decentralized platforms where you're not beholden to this, where you create efficiencies. As a guy that did real estate, why am I paying points in and out for title insurance that could be done on the blockchain? So we got into crypto not because it was like, hey, this is the next cool thing. We got into it out of necessity. We got into it because we understood just how quickly we could be turned off, even as an incredible developer from New York City. I mean, I don't think anyone would argue that we didn't change the skyline of New York City, but that disappeared in an instant. I mean, we're getting sued by New York State AG, $500 million fees for paying back loans on time with interest. These aren't, fair markets. There's nothing egalitarian about any of that. So we actually, as innovators, as people who understand these things, we went all in on a concept that makes total sense because we'd actually been the recipient of how quickly that can be shut off.
You've been saying that since we started Bitcoin Show 1, right? It's right there in black and white, and I'm sure everybody else sitting around the table at CNBC. I remember when they did the CNBC, I think it was, and Bloomberg did I can't remember, I think it was CNBC, did the death of Bitcoin. I think it was around $5,000 at the time or something like that, and they said that they actually did a mock funeral for it and said it was over.
So it's funny you mentioned that because I just saw today there are people who were tracking the annual number of Bitcoin funerals per year. And it actually peaked, I think, about in 2021, maybe 2022. So Bitcoin has been declared dead like 400 times. And the number of declarations of Bitcoin's death has now been on the decline. And like this year, almost it's never happening. So it's an interesting phenomenon to just stop and think about, because there did, when I first got into this space, there did used to be, semi-regular proclamations from all the mainstream and announcements. And this is like the thing that people don't understand about Bitcoin. There's risk that the price is going to go up and down. And we've talked about this before, is Bitcoin going to be cheaper at some point than it is probably right now? Sure. But is the risk that it's going to, disappear and not be an enduring technology in the future? It's it's like email. Bitcoin is like email for money, and the likelihood that email is going to exist is really high, and the likelihood that Bitcoin exists is on par with that same likelihood.
Yeah, I think the election win obviously is huge because you have a president of the United States, the most powerful country in the world, that is very Bitcoin friendly, and then you have his family. I mean, all of them have put money into Bitcoin, and
yeah, they just bought $2 billion.
Yeah, 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 and I'm sure a lot of the people sitting around that table there, Joe, and the rest of them, they're just like, why didn't we listen, right? Why didn't we get debanked? And in Canada here, people say, there's no risk of being debanked. But in the United States, they debanked a lot of conservatives, including Melania Trump. They debanked her. Like, she got letters, and they threw her out of the bank. Same as, Trump and that, because they were on the wrong side of the political sphere. But we're seeing it here in Canada. Eva Chipwick, the lawyer for the Freedom Convoy, got a letter from RBC saying, I can't remember if it's 30 days, 45 days. You got 45 days to get your crap and get out.
Yeah, and luckily, there are some sort of freedom-minded people in the banking world, and a friend of mine, Brett Olin, who's the head of Bow Valley Credit Union, was there to sort of provide her a life raft. But for people, I know people who have been entirely debanked, and it happens more than you might think. Even Block Rewards, we were debanked from our original banking provider, who I won't out right here, but their logo is blue. We're a regulated money services business. We had done nothing wrong, and we just got a notice one day that we had 30 days to find an alternative solution. And so, I think that what Donald Trump was talking about, or Trump Jr. in that clip, it's technology is enabling kind of like a democratization of access to these services that have traditionally been gatekept as a result of the need for security. And this is one thing that Bitcoin really does. One of the big core ethos of Bitcoin is be your own bank. And, you and I have talked about this, Jim. When you put your money in the bank, one, they don't have your money. Two, it's not yours. And like three, it's not even... Try and
go get it. Try and go get it sometimes.
Exactly. And so this is one of the beautiful things for people who store some or all of their wealth in Bitcoin, is you literally are your own bank. You can take it. It's international. It's borderless. You can have it whenever you want. Nobody can tell you what you're allowed to spend it on. These are all kind of like innovations that I think, are important to people in different parts of the world, depending on where they live. So for sure, if I was a Canadian person and I, liked walking in the forest, I would probably be thinking that Bitcoin may have some potential application for me in the future.
Speaking of that, I am interviewing John Carpe from the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms at 3:30 here. So if you're interested, you can watch that on the live stream. And we're going to talk about walking in the forest in Nova Scotia. And we're also going to talk about Sean Foyt, the Christian rock singer here that's in Canada here, that is being shut down in many venues across Canada. And, constitutional freedoms. It seems like, like this machine that's an apparatus that's in place, when they don't like certain things, they just kind of continue to shut you down across Canada. They've definitely the Liberal and the NDP have a way of kind of like collabing on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and if you don't have the right, we saw this during the trucker convoy, right? If you don't have the right to transact or participate in the financial system, then you really don't have any other rights, right? You don't have the right to assemble. You don't have the right to free speech. Truly,
or breathe. Breathe, for that matter.
Yeah. If those actions cost your ability to function in society, then you never had them in the first place. And so, the people who were, Bitcoin was an instrumental in funding the truckers once the GoFundMe dollars collection was seized. And I know the Bitcoiners that were responsible for collecting that Bitcoin, and it's crazy. The inside story of what happened there too is really wild. Like, you wouldn't believe that this happened in Canada. A SWAT team of Ontario police kicking a door down to confiscate a computer for what was legally donated Bitcoin. I mean, wild times.
Absolutely crazy. And again, you and I have talked about this many times. So the stuff that's outside the banking system that has no liabilities attached to it, I mean, to me, two things come to mind, and one of them is crypto, Bitcoin. And I'm going to say Bitcoin in general, not crypto, but and gold. And gold is less. Well, it's tougher to spend, but you can take it anywhere around the world. And it obviously has some portability things. You can't put it in your pocket as much if you have a lot of it. But those are the kind of things that governments don't attach liabilities to. And if you think about Canada, Canada doesn't have any gold reserves because they don't like gold for some strange reason.
Yeah.
And the Liberal government NDP don't like Bitcoin.
I mean, and they don't like people having savings either. Chrystia Freeland has said a number of times, made references to the way that we're going to, stimulate GDP growth or whatever, is to, gain access to people's savings accounts, and this is what broke countries do, right? So the other thing that Bitcoin provides, and gold as well, is that it's difficult or next to impossible to confiscate. And these are things you would think would never happen here, but you might not want to take the risk.
Yeah, Bitcoiners around the world must be very happy that Donald Trump won the election, though, because it really legitimized Bitcoin in so many ways. Because Trump is about to sign legislation, or an executive order actually, in the U.S. that allows crypto to be put into 401ks. We don't have that yet in Canada, where you can put it in your RSPs and that, but there you go. I mean, they've and then obviously some of the biggest institutions in the United States have now legitimized it as well, and many large corporations are starting to add it to their balance sheet. We did that last time, I think, when we talked about Tesla and MicroStrategy and a bunch of other ones that have it on their balance sheet now.
Yeah, I mean, and since we talked 2 weeks ago, MicroStrategy bought another 21,000 Bitcoin. So MicroStrategy is really like accumulating Bitcoin at a rate that I think in 50 years, people will just be shocked that nobody else caught on to what they were doing and how far out in front of everyone else they were able to get. And so, I think we're headed to a world today. These companies are called Bitcoin treasury companies, and there's a bunch of Bitcoin treasury stocks that have performed very well. MicroStrategy is among the best performing stocks since they enacted this strategy 5 years ago. Today, there might be 200 companies that are consider themselves Bitcoin treasury companies, but I think by the end of the decade, we will just call those companies because every company will use Bitcoin as a way to, the same way individual people do. It's a tool to protect capital from currency debasement, which is an escalating problem and something that's relevant to everyone. So I think that Bitcoin is really emerging right now as a preferred savings vehicle for the digital age. And I made a post about this the other day on LinkedIn, and we were talking about this in our last episode. So there was, within the last couple of months, 2 AAA rated office towers in downtown Denver that sold for $200 million 5 years ago and just sold for $3 million. So $197 million write down. But at that time, when they last sold for $200 million, the Bitcoin price was 10,000, and today it's 115 US. So the actual compound real loss on that trade is like thousands of percent. And I think that this is something that we will see continue to play out as Bitcoin continues to outperform, and markets like commercial real estate continue to struggle or be repriced. So lots of headwinds. The 401k thing is huge. And in Canada, Bitcoin right now is not what's considered a qualified investment. So you can't register Bitcoin. We offer, our Bitcoin savings plan is an unregistered way to do the same idea with a group RSP where the asset is Bitcoin, doesn't have a tax deferral. We were talking about this morning, though. I actually kind of think that there's not enough attention paid to RSPs. I think are a little bit of a fugazi because you get a tax deferral when you make a contribution, but tax rates have reliably increased year over year. Taxes started at 2% like 115 years ago, and so I don't know how many people actually really go backwards and do the calculations of what their actual tax rate is when they're 70 years old and the tax rates have increased in the 20 years since they retired. So, I think we're headed to, like a future where financial products just kind of work differently. And I'm not so sure that people will put such a premium on having to lock that money away when you could actually just, think about, saving in a tool that's compounding at 40% a year.
Yeah, and I would advise people though too is, I shouldn't say the word advise, but your TFSA is a much better vehicle than the RRSPs because it gives you liquidity, number one, and you're right there. RRSPs are a tax deferral, and lots of times that we'll end up doing is actually eating into clawing back your benefits later because they say, oh, you have to if you ended up building up a large RRSP. And then because you have to collapse it as a RIF, I think it's like 70 something, 71, 72. You have to collapse it, and that's income now, just taxable income. Then you add your CPP to that, and then you don't qualify for OAS or some of the other things. And so basically, not only are you getting taxed on it, they're actually clawing back some of the money that you would have gotten. So It's like double jeopardy.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, and it's again, this clip by Donald Trump Jr. is so on par in what's happening in Canada too. And one of the things that I know a lot of people are concerned with here in Canada too is the CBDC. And it looks like the EU is moving forward on their CBDC, which gives the nation way more power than the banks. At least right now, the bank or the nation, the Liberal Party or the party in power, has to pressure the institution to shut it off for you. With the CBDC, they can just shut it off. They don't even need to go to the institution.
Yeah. And this is, I think like people today maybe don't necessarily appreciate how innovative and important having money that is uncensorable and unconfiscatable truly is. But this is like, it's incredibly relevant for our time.
And then you've got an innovative company. We're going to talk about that a little bit here. You've got an innovative company, Block Rewards, and you've been in the benefits kind of space. That's kind of like your career, your life path or whatever. And you've said, oh, how do I take like this kind of like mature model with benefits, which everybody kind of uses for benefits, and then kind of like bring in some technology and reward employees and give the employers the ability to reward employees. Yeah.
And the thing is like Bitcoin's performance, the ordinary people wouldn't think about, a strong allocation to Bitcoin. People who don't have that conviction. And so that's part of what our product offers is like a mass exposure to an employee population of an asset that has historically performed better than something we've really seen in modern times. And we've been running Bitcoin savings plans for a few years now. And like a quick story, our largest customer is a company out of Edmonton. They started their Bitcoin savings plan when the price was, sort of around 25,000 Canadian. And today, I don't know, it's 150, something like that. And they have employees that save $5,000 or $10,000 during that time, only 2.5 years ago, and their value in the account now is like 60,000. Yeah. And there isn't another employee benefit that could have done that. You can't even do that with salaries. So like, we pay our staff
lottery tickets.
Right. We pay our staff in money that becomes less valuable, and that's the reason we have to continually give everybody raises. So the idea of paying people in money that becomes more valuable is like supercharging your compensation budget.
There you go. You heard it here first. No more raises in your company. You don't have to give anybody a raise. You just put them on the Bitcoin plan. I don't know if they'll go for that, but it is like kind of like, like when you're even buying stock or whatever through Wealthsimple or some of these other apps, I wouldn't buy it anywhere else these days, is dollar cost averaging in. So like you go on a payroll savings plan with it, then you know what, it shouldn't matter to you whether it's 115 today, and I'm talking US dollars, or 90 tomorrow, 130 the next day, and 80, and because it is very volatile right now. There's no doubt about it. That's part of the attraction of it for some people. But if you're putting in, if you're dollar cost averaging in, 500 this month, 500 next month, or whatever that number is that you come up with, and then you kind of ride out you smooth it out, right? And that's the same way you should buy stocks. If you find a company you really like. If you like MicroStrategy, if you're buying MicroStrategy 10 years ago, like just think of what that is, right?
Yeah, it was like $2. So some people have probably done very well.
Yeah, no, it's but again, dollar cost averaging, and that's what a payroll savings plan does. It allows you to kind of do that on your own. So we're going to put a link in here, and then you can kind of click on that, and then you fill out the form that I think on Scott's website there. And somebody will reach out to you, and you see if you can put your employees or yourselves on there as an employer.
Love to talk to anybody who's interested to learn more.
Yeah. Again, I think like that the win by the Republican administration, there's a big boom for Bitcoin, and it really legitimizes it. And then there's a lot of countries now starting to adopt it as well. Even our own mayor here in Vancouver, as a Ken Sims there, says he wants to make Vancouver the Bitcoin capital of Canada.
That's right. And maybe a quick plug on that. There is a Bitcoin conference happening in Vancouver next weekend called Learning Bitcoin. It's at the Vancouver Convention Center. And Mayor Sim and I will actually be sharing the stage together as the keynote on Friday evening. And we'll be doing a kind of a fireside chat about his vision for Vancouver being the world's first, Bitcoin-friendly city.
Is that going to last?
I've had the opportunity to meet Mayor Sim a few times since he made his announcement, and I think it's so cool to see we have a leader in our region, especially Vancouver's right in the belly of spend into bankruptcy. So his vision for a sound money reserve for Vancouver is inspiring.
Maybe you should do one on the EB and convince him that not to spend us into like oblivion, but. Is that live streamed as well at all, or is that just you have to actually show up to see it?
I think you just actually have to be there. But if there's anyone who is interested, it's going to be a great event, and you can actually use the code BLOCK, and I think you can get 10% off of a weekend pass using our referral code.
I remember when they were doing the first Bitcoin conferences. I wasn't there, but I do remember hearing about it, where they were actually giving you Bitcoin to show up there, and the room was empty, and there's one or two people on the stage there trying to convince you that Bitcoin was the thing, right? And I think one guy got a whole bunch of it and bought some pizza with it or something like that, right?
10,000.
Yeah.
There's actually one of our directors at Block Rewards was Canada's first brick and mortar Bitcoin retailer, over a decade ago, and he tells the story that in 2013 he paid 30,000 Bitcoin for the furniture in his store, and so that today would be, hundreds of millions of dollars. Yeah.
That's some expensive furniture.
Yeah. But that will happen again. People, that will happen again. People will think about, what they spent one Bitcoin on today, and it will be an unimaginable amount of money in 10 years.
Like I said, with all the big financial institutions in the United States legitimizing it, it's a big deal. And I think we got the Bitcoin price there in Canadian dollars on the bottom of the screen as well. In Canadian dollars, 160. What is that? 161, 160. Yeah, my glasses are 160, 161.076.
Another thing, piece of news that came out this week was there was a guy who became famous because he threw out a hard drive that had 8,000 Bitcoin on it. And he had been kind of crowdfunding all these different. He needed a humongous amount of money to dredge this dump to try and find this hard drive, and they announced this week that he's finally given up, and so that's 8,000 Bitcoin, which are gone out of the circulating supply forever. And
so what's that worth? 8,000. It's 8,000 times like 200 grand, just for argument's sake, Canadian dollars, right?
Yeah. It's a lot of money.
Yeah. And so there you go. There's you run your own mining operation. You can go to the dump.
So while you're having these big companies and countries buying up, MicroStrategy bought 21,000 Bitcoin. As Bitcoin get lost, we're a whole planet fighting over a finite amount of things. This is the only thing in the world that has an inelastic relationship between the supply and the demand.
Yeah, Donald Trump DJT on the U.S. or the NASDAQ stock market. I think it's on the NASDAQ, isn't it? Let me just check here if it's on the NASDAQ or not. It is on the NASDAQ. DJT put $2 billion into Bitcoin, and they got about $3 billion in assets, and two-thirds of that is in Bitcoin. Yeah, and then Elon Musk has been. I think he just put out a tweet today or Grok put out something on Bitcoin too. Have you checked
Yeah,
the new
there was.
Grok out? It's pretty wild.
It sure seems like Grok understands Bitcoin. There are lots of people asking it questions about it, and Grok is bullish on BTC.
Grok is a fan, 100%. Grok is a fan, right? And you can ask Grok anything. It's one of the, I love using Grok now, especially the images and all kinds of stuff. It'll do memes like crazy. Like I was talking to one of our reporters, and they're saying, well, we need all these stock photography systems that we used to use. We used to pay a lot of money, like a couple grand a month for these stock libraries. You can basically get anything you need now through Grok. They say, well, what if we wanted a Canada Post, somebody staring at a screen with Canada Post logo on it. And so I put it in there for them, and it spits out like 20, 30 images, right? Pick one you want. And then you can animate it. And I said, you can get even Justin Trudeau licking the screen while, on the logo there. And sure enough.
It'll let you do that now?
Yeah. Well, Grok has always been okay with that. ChatGPT is more, no. Let's just say no. ChatGPT's got a filter. Did you see the Google Gemini meltdown?
I did see that, yeah.
Poor Gemini.
I don't have a ton of sympathy for Google.
Anything else you want to cover off today?
Yeah, no, that was kind of the things on my list, Jim. I guess we'll do it again in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. So this is our season 2 of the Bitcoin Show. Again, if you're interested in getting your employees, or if you're an employer and you want to even get this for yourself, you can start out with 1 person, 2 people, 3 people, 10 people. And then once your employees find out about it, it's a great way to dollar cost average into Bitcoin. And maybe you don't have to worry about getting debanked in Canada if you decide that you're on the wrong side of the political sphere.
Yeah, and if that's not a problem for you, you may just end up with a really great performing investment.
There you go. And then again at 3:30, I will have John Carpe on, the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, talking about 2 things that we mentioned him here. A Christian rock singer that's not allowed to sing because he's unsafe for some strange reason. And obviously, you can't walk in the woods in Nova Scotia because basically everybody's a criminal.
Coming soon to a theater near you. I'll try to tune in for that one, Jim.
All right, cheers. We'll see you next week. And we do thank you for watching Now Media.